What is going on, you guys? We finally got some new Legion stuff. I say finally because for Legion folks, it's been a little while. We've seen these guys announced at Gen Con. However, if you play other games like Armada, you're like, finally, Legion gets new stuff all the time. But Legion's the newest, big Star Wars game, so Legion's getting a lot more attention because it's higher on the priority list. But it's nice to see these guys actually get their official announcement article. These are the Rebel and Imperial Specialists, the personnel expansion. We have 4 unique, Imperial officer, trooper kind of personnel upgrades that can go into your existing troops already to augment them. And we've got the same thing for the Rebels. And the Rebels are a little more familiar because it definitely looks like Gideon from Imperial Assault. We've got, looks like R5D4, 2-1B, and so that's pretty cool. 2-1B always made me think back to that old, it was one of the few original classic Star Wars action figures that I still have from the early 80s. I don't really know the names of all of these, the original figures that they were based on, but that officer is female. Now, the funny thing is, she's painted with black hair there. However, in her art, it looks like she's got blonde hair. So I was thinking it's totally Juno Eclipse, but they painted her more like Governor Price from Star Wars Rebels. So pretty cool. So we got a lot of stuff that we can look at based off the spread. Now, they didn't give us a whole lot of card previews here, but they did give us some interesting stuff. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. So zooming in, we can see, and some of this has kind of already been spoiled a little bit, but covert observation. We're getting basically new, command cards, which is cool. So new generic command cards to go along with the ability to have a generic commander. So covert observation, it looks like, it's Imperial only. It says 1 special forces or operative unit, it looks like, and you can look at up to 2 random command cards from an opponent's hand. Now, that doesn't sound all that great because in a lot of games, it doesn't let you do anything. You can just look at those cards. So maybe you look at standing orders and maybe Luke's 1 pip or something like that. A lot of times it seems like a foregone conclusion what specific command cards somebody's going to have. Granted, with these new command cards, you may want to take these instead. However, if somebody's running a generic officer, they're probably just going to have their default ones, and then these, there's really not that many options they could have. However, as more commanders become available and people start running operatives and multiple commanders and stuff, there could be some questions on which ones you choose. I think Han Solo's command cards are very potential game changers, and so it might be interesting to see in a list, or maybe somebody's running something like Han Solo and maybe Leia and maybe also Chewbacca at one point. You're like, all right, well, which ones did they bring? And did they bring any generic command cards? Should I focus on killing the commanders? Who should I focus on killing? Who's got the more the more damaging 1 pips? Did they bring Han's 0 pip and Leia's 1 pip? Does that mean they didn't bring some of Chewie's command cards? Who should I prioritize killing? In certain niche lists like that, this card might be really useful, but I think for most of the time, you'll probably only use this card, at least in the immediate future, if you're running maybe just a generic Imperial officer as your commander. I think that's probably the only way you would do something like that. So we get a close-up of the Imperial officer card as well. Only 50 points, that looks like. So really, really cheap generic option if you're looking to, maximize your units and minimize that requirement for a commander. That's really I think one of the highlights of this expansion is that you can now have generic commanders. I think this is also potentially really cool for anybody who wants to use their own custom miniature. I probably wouldn't be able to do this in tournament level games, but for anything outside of a high-ranking tournament, even casual play or even casual tournaments, I wouldn't have a problem if you wanted to use your own miniature. But I think having generic commanders is a really cool way for somebody to just design their own miniature and put it in the game. Or, pick, I like this guy. This is going to be, maybe I want to have Commander Crabbok, and he's going to, be an Imperial officer. And I can go ahead and just use that. Maybe I'll design a custom miniature with like an Imperial uniform with nunchucks or something like that. I think that kind of thing is going to be fun. Something that maybe some people will do. Let me know if that's something that you think that you're going to do. Speaking of comments, there is still another round of the giveaway going on right now. So if you'd like to win an expansion of your choice in the form of a $25 Cool Stuff gift card, all you have to do is become a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. That winner will be announced at the end of one of my videos this week, so there is still time to get in on that. So the Imperial Officer has Spotter 1, so this is going to give somebody an aim token at range 1. This could be really useful if you're running maybe an ATST is using up a lot of your points, especially since Boba Fett just came out. Maybe you want to run some really expensive units, and you're like, oh, but I don't want to have to run Veers or Vader. You can save some points this way to make room for those expensive units by having a generic Imperial Officer. And them having Spotter also helps because now they can pass along an aim to that walker, so that walker can now move and then shoot and also have an aim or something like that. Inspire 1, so you can remove suppression from somebody else. It just makes them good support. And Sharpshooter, so actually they're not terrible at shooting. 4 health, only 2 courage, so you can kill one of these officers fairly easily. It won't be that hard, but I think this is somebody you want to play and kind of keep them a little bit safe. They do have a surge to hit and surge for defense. They're speed 2. They have that officer's RK3 blaster pistol, range 1 to 2, a black and a white. So not too bad. Not too bad. Not great, but for 50 points and it's taking care of your commander requirement, that's great. What I wouldn't do is I don't see myself really running an Imperial Officer with a named commander. Like I wouldn't run Darth Vader and an Imperial Officer. I just don't see myself really doing that very much. I could see maybe running 2 Imperial Officers if you really want to assign your commands. Personally, I don't tend to do that. I tend to maximize troopers, and I'll put my officer next to maybe the ATST, and then have a whole bunch of troopers. And so the officer can just keep giving commands to the ATST, and then the troopers I can pull from the pile and activate the troopers and try to mitigate commands that way. But we also have an officer card on the Imperial Officer card. Now this is if you want to put it in personnel. And there's cards for all. We don't get really spoilers of any of the other miniatures that are going to be personnel upgrades. But it looks like there's 4 of those. Plus, we're also getting a new equipment and a new comm. But yes, the Imperial Officer adds an Imperial Officer miniature. Your courage, it says your encourage is increased by 1, which is great. You gain Inspire 1, which is great. And that mini becomes your unit's leader. Okay. Now that's expensive. It's 20 points. It's a little more expensive than adding a regular Stormtrooper. But considering it's increasing your courage value, it's nice. Another thing I think is great about something like this, if you have a single Stormtrooper unit out there, or whatever, Snowtrooper, whatever, it's nice to be able to have a higher courage value. Because let's say I'm running Darth Vader. Well, say Darth Vader does end up dying because I charged him into the battle. I have to nominate some other trooper unit to be my new commander. Well, if a unit has an officer as one of their personnel, that one can now step up. That's an ideal candidate to be your new commander because they have that higher courage value, which they can then spread out to everybody else. So it makes a really good backup plan in case your lone commander dies, having an Imperial Officer as doing that. Pretty cool. I like that. I like that a pretty decent amount. So, no, we are also getting a preview of our Rebels, which is pretty cool. And let me go back here because I'm really kind of impressed that they have decided to go ahead and send Gideon over from Imperial Assault and put him into this game as well. So that's fun. Ooh, what was that? That was fun. Sorry. Well, so what we're looking at here is now we're looking at kind of zooming in on some of the other cards that we get here. It's very, very similar to the Imperial version. We're getting Sabotage Communications. And this is a 1 pip. This is going to be Rebel only. And I think this one's probably a little bit better. Your opponent must issue orders to 1 fewer unit that is indicated on their command card to a minimum of 1. I like that one. I like that one quite a bit because that one's actually seems useful right out the gate. While the other one for the Empire's version might be a little bit not good now, maybe potentially good further on down the road, this one seems like it's immediately useful. And it can activate a Special Forces or operative unit. I think by the time you're using this you're always going to have special forces or operatives. You might not, though, and the thing is, you can still use this even if you don't have special forces or operatives. You just won't have issued any commands that turn, but you can still use it to go first. So if you need to pull from the pile first, no problem. And my guess is that if you're not using special forces or an operative, you probably have a lot of core in your unit. But maybe not. Maybe you're running, double heavy vehicle or something like that. That's possible. We also get a close-up look at our Rebel officer. Very, very similar to the Imperial version. Still 50 points. Still acts as a commander. White defense die, 4 health, 2 courage, offensive surge to hit, defensive surge, range 1 to 2, black and white die. We have take cover 1. So we're not able to give out aim tokens. We're actually able to give out a dodge token with this Rebel officer. Similar to Leia. If the Imperial officer was like a cheap version of Veers, this one is like a cheap version of Leia. Inspire 1 and Sharpshooter 1. We have the same thing on both of the officers, but take cover is interesting because you're giving out a dodge instead of an aim. I kind of like aims a little bit better, but dodges synergize a little bit more with the Rebel Trooper's nimble ability, so that's not terrible. The Rebel Officer upgrade card is going to be about the same, although he's 1 point cheaper. The Rebel Officer is going to say add 1 Rebel Officer Mini, your courage is increased by 1, you gain Inspire 1, and Leader. So, again, not bad. Not bad. A little cheaper on the Rebel side, but I like that you're going to have, this one expansion that's got these 4 minis in here. You got a lot of different ways to use this. You can have this guy as your own, as your leader. You've got different personnel upgrades. So you can upgrade like 4 different core units at once, or maybe have one that's your actual commander, and then upgrade 3 different units at once. Or I can totally see wanting to buy multiples of these. You may want to buy a whole lot of these because maybe all of your Rebel troopers will now run with a Rebel officer in them from now on, and so now you're gonna have all Rebel troopers with higher courage, so you'll never have to panic, and they'll be clearing out suppression from each other every time one activates, something crazy like that. That might be something you'll do. I could see buying a whole lot of these and then painting them all different too, because you're not going to want all of them to look like Gideon. Same thing goes with the Imperial version. I'm not going to want all of them to look exactly the same, but it is cool to see generic officers. It's kind of cool to see a female officer sculpt too, because I would have thought generic Imperial officer, because you see so many male Imperial officers, I would have thought that would have been the first thing that they did. But it's kind of cool because, hey, there's some cool female officers out there, especially Juno Eclipse. I'm not a big fan of Arinda Price, but I'm happy. I will be painting mine blonde for sure. So we did get one actual card preview in this expansion. That's the Rebel Comms Technician. And this one is, it adds a Rebel Comms Technician Mini. I'm assuming that that's going to be this little green shirt, orange-haired young lady right here on the left, because it's certainly not Gideon, certainly not 2-1B or R5D4. And it's going to give you the ability to add the comms upgrade, but you must upgrade a comms upgrade card, which is a little surprising. I guess because it's only 9 points because you're adding a mini. So you're considering you still are adding a mini, you're still able to shoot with the mini. You're still able to be 1 more hit point for the unit. But the fact that you must equip a comm, now that effectively raises your cost a little bit more. Instead of just adding a regular Rebel Trooper, this, people would be like, well, why wouldn't I just always use the Rebel Comms Technician as opposed to a regular Rebel Trooper? And this is why, because it's forcing you. You're not just taking this and, getting a discount or getting a cheap extra personnel. So it makes sense. I can dig it, because I'm not going to always want to put a comm on my upgrades or on my Rebel Troopers. That's only for, comm seems like it's kind of a corner case. Like, you know what? I need these guys to be very specialty purpose. They're going to go off in the distance, or they're going to jam communications or doing something like that. Maybe future comms will come out at some point that are going to make this even more desirable. I don't know how desirable this one is right now, but I like the extra flexibility that it gives. Plus, I like new sculpts and new models and change up the way you build units. I think this game is getting to a point where build diversity is going to become very much more intense, and I think that's a good thing for the health of the game. So that's exciting, and I think these two factions are settling into a good point, so this way when Clone Wars stuff eventually comes out, you're going to have some pretty diverse Rebel and Imperial factions already to contend with, so it'll make, I don't know, man. I think it's just all good stuff for the future of this game. This game seems like it's really got a great plan for the future. So very excited. But I'd like to hear what you guys think. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Which one of these two are you more excited about? What's your favorite sculpt as well? I'd like to hear from you guys. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Don't forget to check out Crabbok.com and hit me up on my Discord. Hop in there and say hi. We're always hanging out and talking about all the cool news. This is a great time to be a Star Wars fan, folks. There's a lot of really cool stuff out there. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, have a great day.